Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are opening up a seriously fascinating historical case file. We're essentially going to play the role of historical detectives to try and unravel one of the most hotly debated mysteries of ancient India. We are talking about the true origins of the great Pallava Dynasty. It's a story packed with linguistic clues, ancient copperplate charters, mythological romances, and let me tell you, some intense academic debate. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this whole shebang, so let's just get right to it.
Now, to really get why this mystery matters so much, you have to think about the sheer scale and the literally breathtaking architecture that the Pallavas left behind. I mean, these guys were not just some minor forgotten kingdom. Far from it. From the middle of the 3rd century AD all the way through to the 10th century, they ruled this vast empire right from their capital at Kanchipuram. They were a massive, dominant force in South India, constantly going toe-to-toe with the Chalukyas and Pandyas for supremacy, and their artistic and architectural grandeur fundamentally shaped the cultural landscape of the entire region. So the stakes for our historical investigation today are incredibly high, because figuring out exactly where these master builders actually came from changes how we understand the history of the entire Indian subcontinent. Okay, let's dive into this. How does an empire this incredibly powerful just appear on the historical stage? Despite the massive, undeniable legacy they literally carved into stone across South India, the exact roots of the Pallavas remain a massive academic whodunit. When early historians started piecing together Indian history, they realized something kind of strange. Early Pallava records were written in Prakrit and Sanskrit, and surprisingly, the dynasty isn't even mentioned in classical Sangam Tamil literature. That is a glaring gap in the historical record, and it sparked a fierce scholarly debate. Where on earth did they come from?
Well, to try and solve this, we are going to systematically interrogate 5 main historical suspects: strangers from a foreign land, a northern clan, a romantic legend, indigenous sons of the soil, and finally, ties to the Satavahanas.
All right, suspect number 1, strangers from a foreign land, focusing on the Parthian connection. The really crucial clue for this theory is all about etymology, the evolution of words. Scholars like Venkaya argued that the name Pallava evolved directly from the word Pallava. Now, the Pallavas, or Parthians, were Persian invaders who showed up in northwestern India around the 1st century AD. The theory basically goes that from their settlements up in the northwest, these Pallavas gradually migrated southwards into the Deccan region through Maharashtra. They supposedly came looking for jobs as provincial governors under the super powerful Satavahana kings. And actually, we even have a Junagadh inscription that specifically mentions a Pallava minister. So as the Satavahana Empire eventually started to decline, this theory suggests these foreign governors just carved out their own independent principality down in South India, with their names slowly morphing from Pallava to Pallava over the centuries. Moving on to suspect number 2, the northern clan and their shared Gothras. This theory relies heavily on how the Pallavas actually described themselves in their own copperplate charters. See, the early Pallavas claimed they belonged to the Bharadvaja Gotra, which is their lineage. The historian K.P. Jayaswal made a really compelling argument here. He suggested the Pallavas actually belonged to the clan of the Vakatakas, which was a very powerful northern and central Indian dynasty. Why? Because both of these ruling families shared that exact same Bharadvaja Gotra. On top of that, the Pallavas were strict followers of the Varnashrama code. They welcomed large groups of northern Brahmins to settle in the south through these massive land grants known as Brahmadams, and they heavily patronized Brahmanism. So, to a lot of scholars, these cultural markers are a dead giveaway that they were actually a northern Brahmanical clan that had just moved down south.
Next up, suspect number 3, the romantic legend involving Cholas and Nagas. Because honestly, what is ancient history without a little bit of drama, right? We have this incredibly dramatic clue found in the ancient Tamil twin epics, particularly the Mani Megalai. Based on this, scholars like Mudaliyar C. Rasanayagam viewed the Pallavas as the hybrid product of a highly exotic royal romance. The story goes that an early Chola king named Kili Vallavan had a secret liaison with a Naga princess named Pilavalai. She was from the island of Manipallavam, which we know today as modern-day Jaffna in Sri Lanka. The child born from this union, Tondaimandalam, is said to be the legendary progenitor of the entire Pallava line. Now, while historians definitely debate the strict factual accuracy of this epic tale, it wonderfully illustrates how local traditions tried to explain the sudden, explosive rise of this dynasty by tying them to both established local royalty and these mysterious island kingdoms. Which brings us to suspect number 4, indigenous sons of the soil, essentially a local mix.
Now, this one is super interesting because it totally flips our earlier linguistic argument completely on its head. Eminent historians like Dr. S. Krishnaswamy Iyengar and later Vincent Smith, who actually changed his mind on this, proving historians are totally allowed to do that, they supported this native view. They pointed out that the rulers of Kanchi were historically known as Tondaimandalam, the local people were the Tondayar, and the region itself was Tondaimandalam. So the linguistic evidence here suggests that the word Pallava wasn't some corruption of the Persian Pallava at all. Nope. Instead, it was simply a Prakrit and Sanskrit translation of the native Tamil word Tondayar. Under this theory, they were just a local indigenous tribe that adopted fancy Sanskritized names and administrative titles as they grew in power.
And finally, suspect number 5, Satavahana ties. And spoiler alert, these are the most likely suspects. Historians really favor this theory because, honestly, the concrete evidence just lines up perfectly. First, let's look at language. The earliest Pallava inscriptions weren't actually in Tamil. They were in Prakrit and Sanskrit. And guess what? Those were the official administrative languages of the Satavahana Empire. Second, administration. Before there were kings, the early Pallavas most likely served as Maharathis or Mahasenapathis. Basically, they were provincial military governors for the Satavahanas out on the southeastern frontiers. Third, we have geography. Their absolute earliest inscriptions and land grants prove they initially ruled parts of the Guntur and Nellore districts in modern Andhra Pradesh, not Tamil Nadu. It was only much later that they packed up and moved south to establish their independent capital at Kanchipuram. So if we trace their rise chronologically, we see that the Pallavas definitely didn't just appear overnight. When the massive Satavahana Empire began to slowly decay and fracture into these various little ghost kingdoms, the Pallavas were right there as local governors, and they saw their window of opportunity. Historical records suggest they forged a highly strategic matrimonial alliance with the Chuda Nagas of Banavasi, who were actually another former Satavahana viceroy family. By pooling their strength, they began systematically expanding their territory. By the end of the 3rd century AD, under kings like Simhavarman I, they successfully overthrew the Ikshwakus of Vijayapuri, who had taken temporary control of the region. Having totally supplanted their rivals, they then moved their capital down south to Kanchipuram, in Tondaimandalam, officially rising to full independent imperial status. It really is just remarkable when you step back and look at it. We have interrogated the Persians, the northern Brahmins, the mythical Naga princesses, the local tribes, and the ambitious Satavahana governors. While the feudatory origin theory holds the most concrete, hard evidence today, the debate still lingers in the margins of history. But it leaves us with a truly fascinating final thought to ponder. How did a dynasty, whose very origins are clouded in such profound historical ambiguity, manage to carve their names so permanently into the bedrock of South India, leaving behind this undeniable legacy of art, architecture, and culture that still literally stands today? Thank you so much for joining me on this historical investigation. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.